Good evening. I'd like to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board to order for Tuesday, March 17th, 2015. So please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk Ricciardi, roll call, please.
Okay, just a reminder to the board and anyone speaking this evening to make sure you are close to your microphone. I did get a complaint last time about not being able to hear people on the microphone, so if we can do that, that would be much appreciated. Trustee Pompo is excused tonight. Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Truscott.
Here.
Trustee Durant.
Here.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Retired is here, and Supervisor Limata.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard. I believe, yeah, I don't think Jason's here tonight. He will be? Okay, Jason McCarthy will be here. Committee members present is John Marks from the Zoning Board of Appeals, Dave Wiegand from Planning, Roads, and Recreation, Mike Springer from Roads and Recreation, and Dan Adamini from Recreation, and Paula Limata from Recreation. So,
Thank you. Next item on your agenda is approval of the consent agenda. As you know, the consent agenda includes those items that typically do not require immediate board action. This evening is the approval of the prior meeting minutes of March 3rd. Received committee reports for the Peter White Public Library Township Advisory Council minutes from December 3rd. Fire Department activity report of February. Fire Marshal's report of February. The Sheriff's activity report of February. The Recreation Committee draft minutes from February 17th and the agenda for March 17th. Planning Commission minutes from February 25th. Also, correspondence not requiring board action is a correspondence from Superintendent Kirk Page regarding the monthly rubbish drop-off. The We Energy's 2014 fly ash activity report. Marquette County Road Commission correspondence regarding seasonal load and speed restrictions being placed on our local roads on March 13th. And there's also tree clearing along several county roads. We also have correspondence from Charter Communications regarding alterations in their channel lineup. This evening's consent agenda does include bills payable in the amount of $339,665.15. Are there any items in this consent agenda that any member of this board wishes to remove for further discussion? Seeing none?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda for March, for the 17th of March.
Support.
Motion and support to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. The next item on your agenda is approval of the remainder of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Support.
Motion and support to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. This will bring us up to public comment. Those members of the public wishing to make comment to this board may do so at this time. Please approach the podium, first and last name.
Mike Springer, Eagles Nest Road. Just tonight, I want to thank, first of all, Randy Rotari for recognizing that Paula Limata and Dan Adamini is here. We have all of the rec committee here tonight. And of course, we're here in support of new business item 9A. So I also believe Mr. Durant is here, support of that. But we'd like to reserve comment for item 9A. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else wishing to address the board?
Reg Durant, 2523 US Highway 41 West. I just want to take a moment to lend my support to the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant that we're trying to seek through the Recreation Committee, and also the improvements to Lions Field. I was a softball coach like our supervisor for about 10, 12 years, and it's nice to have a facility where the kids can play ball and have other, restrooms and whatever for tournaments and so on. But the gem in my mind has always been, and I'm just going to talk about another entity, which is the Heritage Trail. I walk the Heritage Trail and ride my bike on it all summer long. And I'll sneak down into Schwemmwood, cut back, and then cut back to where I live. I really enjoy it. I try to get Pete to go with me, but he's got other things he's got to do. But Schwemmwood, and I believe that what I've heard is that, looking at expanding the parking. It's a gem. It's a gem, and I support any funds that go towards Schwemmwood Park. So, thank you.
Thanks, Reg.
I'm Brian Savalainen with UP Engineers and Architects, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have on item 8B.
Thanks, Brian. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close public comment, move to board member comment. Those members of the board wishing to have comment may do so at this time. Lynn, I'll start with you.
Yes, sir. I just came from the library board meeting. It was packed, something different, kind of like some of our planning meetings. We don't usually get a lot of public, but there were at least 25 people that I counted who were there. And it took up the beginning was a special presentation by Mayor Mike Coyne of the city of Marquette and Gary Simpson, who's the financial, I believe he's the CFO. I'm not positive. It might be on here. Well, he did the CFO financial forecast. And between that and the discussion of the tax tribunal, it took up an hour and 15 minutes of the hour and a half that I was there. So I didn't get to listen to too much of the rest of the meeting, but they just had some regular business to take care of paying the bills and stuff. So their CFO financial forecast from July 1st is on the city website if anybody wants to see it, or I have a copy with notes on it. And they pretty much explain to the public how the impact of the tribunal is going to affect the library and the city and We Energies and everything, all the other issues that they're facing with finances. He talked a little bit about the impact of the rest of the world and the rest of the state and how they believe that the tribunal is going to corrupt, which we've said repeatedly, the tax code in the state. And the mayor did get up and speak a little bit in the first as an introduction, and they're forecasting a $2 million loss this year, and they're trying to use economic development to combat that rather than raising taxes. He also said, I don't remember, I don't want to quote, but it was something about attacking people who are going to the tribunal. So I didn't know if he meant from a legal standpoint, as far as just using legal funds and attorneys to help fight it, or if he was going to combat with some kind of, I don't know, signs and posters and protests. I don't know. He didn't really elaborate on that. But apparently there are 14,000 tribunal cases pending in Michigan right now from all different types of entities. And there was a gentleman who spoke during public comment from Save Marquette, Save Michigan organization, and he's encouraging businesses who don't go to the tribunal to contact them, and they will feature them or support them. I don't know what he's going to do on the flip side of that as far as, protesting the companies that do. But it was a very interesting presentation. And the comments, there were probably a half a dozen people who got up and spoke, supporting the library as much as they can, and they're trying to figure out how to garner more support. Apparently, I believe a couple of them have talked to the at MAPS, the school district, and they're still not kind of supporting anybody, whether financially or even letter writing or anything. So I think they were confused that was happening, but I just sat quiet. I just listened tonight. I didn't offer any information or anything. They were very much more, if that's proper grammar, more informed than a lot of the people I've talked to lately or even this year. They're getting on the tax tribunal website and they're looking at the justices, if you want to call them that. I'm not sure if they're chairman or what they're called. And so they're doing some research and learning about the impact that this is going to have for everybody, not just their library, but they are focusing on the library. So there was lots of hand clapping, and it was pretty interesting to see that kind of support. So that was good. They are, on a side note, they are paying $3,700 to repair some of the air conditioning that they've had issues with on the roof that are old. And they are looking at, in fact, they did pass, I didn't get a packet, I'm not sure, I've missed it a few times in the mail. So I didn't get the backup information, but they were talking about increasing service fees. And the discussion at the board level was more renting the community room. So I don't know if that was just the main thing that they were discussing. That was what the motion was just to approve the service fee increase that was in front of them. So I don't know if that's just going to mean the rental of the rooms, or if it means fines and that kind of stuff too. And that's pretty much where I had to leave. They had added a couple more things to the agenda, but I wasn't able to stay. Then from the planning level, our planning commission, I have to sign that one. We had a public hearing on a request for a communication tower proposed out by the ski hill, and we passed that. It is actually going to be kind of back in the trees, and nobody's really going to see it. Apparently, AT&T was looking to Verizon to be able to use one of their towers to add on to it, as a lot of our tower people do that we have in the township already. And AT&T, they were all set. They spent 2 years on it, and for whatever reason, AT&T reneged, and they were trying to find somewhere else or somebody else, and they couldn't. So they asked if they could put up their own tower. And, you know, all the specs that we got at the planning level, we didn't see a problem with it. We didn't have any public input. It's going to be, well, you'll be able to see it in the minutes. It'll be pretty nondescript. It's not something you're going to see unless you're, maybe they thought at the very top of the ski hill in the winter, and not so much in the summer, because the trees are gonna block it. I believe it's 170 feet up. And we just talked a little more about our lighting ordinance. We're planning on having as many people as we can at our next meeting next Wednesday to talk about their side of it, the business people, any of the people who have dealt with lighting, or if we can get anybody else from Board of Light and Power or any other entities that have anything to do with the commercial, especially lighting side of it, and so we can narrow down our focus a little bit on the lighting ordinance itself. And we did talk a little bit about the road facilities update. We got a good report from Dave on what was happening with that. And then just updates on Lions Field, and not really much going on the planning and zoning side as far as new projects or anything that are coming. Dairy Queen will be probably the next one we'll look at. As far as I know, Up the Sky is still kind of considering doing stuff now that some of their easement issues are taken care of. I don't know, I think that's it from the planning side. And just one personal comment, if I may. I guess to the public too. Since we work for the residents and the businesses too, because they pay taxes too, it's important for us as your board members to know what you think. And we kind of sit here and assume that we're doing everything okay. But usually the only time we get any feedback is if we're doing something wrong. So I just want to reiterate that it's important for us to know, and you pretty much all have our cell numbers, you know, they're online, or you know how to get a hold of us. Let us know if we're doing things right too. That's just as important, because if we're making comments or voting on something or not voting on something the way you like, it is important for us to know how to go forward. We've got about 1.5 years left in our terms, and I think there's a lot of things we want to accomplish, and we want to make sure we're going in the right direction, and I think we are. We think we are, because nobody's saying don't do that. But it's important to know that we're doing okay too, not from the pat on the back standpoint, but just so we know that what we are doing is what you want. And that doesn't mean maybe that we wouldn't disagree with you on some topics, but it is important to hear, and I appreciated some of the comments I got back on some things that I stated at the last meeting. And again, because I want to know that that's what you're in favor of. It's not always just the bad stuff. So I appreciate that.
Excellent. Diana?
Nothing.
Ernie?
Well, we had a meeting with the Marquette Township Business Association today. There wasn't quite enough people to get a lot of stuff done, but they're moving forward. They're trying to entice some more businesses to get involved in that, and how they can be involved with the township, especially on the beautification committee and the actual welcome signs and that. So they're looking for what we can do to help them. Part of it is financially, but part of it is exactly where to go with it and that too. So it's kind of an abbreviated meeting, so they're trying to get more people to show up at the meeting so they can get more things done. But they have over 50 members at this point in time. So it's, they're working on it. And if you haven't been to their website, I think you should try and go out there and read it. There's a lot of information on it and that.
Thank you. Pete?
I'm just going to tail on what Lynn said about tax tribunal. I keep track of how many articles are sent. We're getting a lot of press. I just wish they would have got on board earlier, because it would have helped us a lot. And with the judges and that, they're appointed by the governor, and I think it's up to legislators, so make sure they know how you're thinking. I mean, they have legislator day coming up in April. It'd be nice if we get a whole crowd to go down there, but it's not always, possible. But just make sure, keep active, because it's going to strangle cities and townships. Before, it was just writing in Marquette Township. Now it's finally, it's hitting home to the city, to, the library, the school's going to get, they're worried about if they can cover a check, they have to send so much back, and they don't get the money from the state to cover it, so they don't know if they can cover their own checks. So I'm glad that, the Journal is covering it as much as they are, so thank you.
Clerk Rattari?
I have two comments tonight. First comment is I was not correct on the last date to register. It's actually Monday, April 6th at 4 o'clock. So you could actually get that weekend after Easter to register. But and that's for the May election. And then second comment is I just got an email a few days ago about what this township has spent for the tax tribunal so far. $270,000 we've spent so far. And just think what we could have did with $270,000 for recreation, for other things in this township. So, that's the sad part of this is, and we had to do it. It's not like we couldn't do it. We had to do it, but $270,000 is a lot of money.
Thanks, Randy. Yeah, I did a presentation a couple weeks ago for the Save Marquette group, and I actually have a PowerPoint I can send out to the board. I don't know if you've all seen it, but Ernie and Pete were here during that presentation, and it ended up going about 2 hours, I suppose. A lot of great questions. They're a great group, really concerned and active, and it's not just about the library. It's about the fairness of Michigan Tax Tribunal's current decisions and how they're going to interpret commercial business from an economic obsolescence standpoint, calling them dark stores or vacant. I'm glad to see this group because they are a grassroots group. They're well organized, and part of my message to them. I've got 3 more groups that I'm going to speak to over the next couple of weeks with the same presentation basically. But it's a complicated issue. It's hard to get it across in sound bites. But if you give me a half an hour, I can get in and get you a PowerPoint that'll kind of explain it in depth. And then folks start to understand that everybody has a hot button issue that gets impacted by these tax tribunal rulings. It may be that you don't care about the library, but there'll be something. It might be something within county operations, or it could just be the school aid tax. If you look at the impact, what could occur if the tax tribunal applies this throughout all commercial business in Marquette Township, it would have a $1.8 million impact to operations in Marquette County. And that goes to everything from police services to operations, to senior services, to recreation, to library, to you name it. And it's just, it puts a crimp. I mean, we're not going to go out of business. We're going to keep providing services. We'll provide essential services. Marquette County will provide essential services. But it's going to have a huge impact, and it's going to be statewide. And we've been saying it for 3 years, and I love to see this group because they're very involved, very active, very dedicated, and very passionate about helping us turn this thing around. So I think the time is right to strike while the iron's hot. And if you can find somebody's hot button issue and they realize that maybe it's, Meals on Wheels or it's something like that, they say, well, wait a minute, I didn't know that was going to be impacted. All of those are things that could potentially have impacts. And check out on Facebook. You can go to the Save Marquette Facebook page and find some more information out from that group. But if nothing else, we just encourage you to write the governor, because the governor can make an impact. The governor he appoints the tax tribunal judges, and he can really, if we can get Governor Snyder involved. We appreciate the legislative efforts by John Keevala and Tom Kasperson. My concern is, looking at them, is that if those were passed and they were able to come out of committee, passed and signed into law sometime this year, it doesn't do anything about all the stipulations that have already occurred. It only changes some parameters moving forward. I think the legislation that we're looking for is one that just asks the tax tribunal to go back to apply the law just like it was written, and whatever exists on December 31st is what you get taxed on, not what may or may not occur somewhere down the road. And we're asking a lot of the tax tribunal judges to determine whether this business will be viable 3 years or 5 years or 10 years from now, and to tax them accordingly. When you realize what the manuals say is you tax them for what's standing there on December 31st. And if we just enforce the laws that we had, that would go a long way towards correcting the situation. But thanks to all the folks who've gotten involved across Marquette County, reach out across the state. And one of the biggest things we fight is that people think that it is a local issue. And I assure you it is not a local issue unless you're talking about the state of Michigan as your locality. Thanks. Closed board member comment. Moved to unfinished business. Consider the 2015 fire rescue officer appointments. Manager Gerard.
Very simply, very quickly, there is one remaining line officer position to be filled. I am recommending Gregory Sharp for the hose lieutenant appointment.
Somebody care to ask any questions or make a motion?
I'll second.
Motion to approve Gregory Sharp as hose lieutenant for 2015. Any comment? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, Lieutenant Sharp. The next item on our agenda is 8B. Consider the local roads update and request for a public hearing for state revolving loan fund. Manager Gerard.
Yeah, this one will take a little longer. As board members will recall, at your last meeting, we had a presentation from UP Engineers and Architects, and they are in the audience this evening, representatives from UPEA. We basically brought the board up to speed on what is or what has occurred with regard to the local roads rehabilitation program that the voters approved at the last November election. 1.5 mils for 15 years. It was a $7.5 million project. With the tax tribunal decisions that have been referenced already in this meeting, the impact, financial impact on that, as well as the changes to the bond market over that period of time, led us to the recognition that it was not feasible at 1.5 mils over 15 years to continue to fund that $7.5 million project. We had been meeting, staff, the road committee and staff, along with UPEA and the road commission, had been meeting to discuss what options there may be. We brought those before the board at the last meeting. The board concurred to have us continue to evaluate those options and bring a recommendation back to the board this evening, which we are prepared to do. I put together a packet of information that I sent out to the board members earlier. It was also in your board packet as well. You have a series of recommendations from UPEA in terms of options that and opinions that they have with regard to the project. There is a question of whether or not we go back to the voters to bring them up to speed on what the 1.5 mils that has been already approved could fund versus what the requirements would be for funding for that $7.5 million project. You also have in your packet the opinion from bond counsel Paul Stouter with regard to just exactly what it requires to fund those two projects, either the full $7.5 million project or a reduced $5 million project. So with that, I think what I will do at this point is to turn it to UPEA to see if there are any questions the board members have for them for their materials. I do have a recommendation at the end of my memo to the board in terms of how, as your budget manager, how I see this unfolding. And one of the aspects that we have not talked a great deal about, it was raised at the last board meeting, is one of the options that we're looking at is tying the road project with a utility project to try and bring in some additional revenue to offset some of the road costs, but that would require the board, and I want to reiterate this to the board, that would require the board to be looking at going forward with a utility project as well, which you have not discussed at this point. There is a recommendation both from UPEA and from me to schedule a public hearing for your next board meeting to give us the opportunity to be within the timeframes required to submit applications for state revolving fund utility projects. Not saying that you'll be doing those, but we have a very stringent timeline that we have to meet, and if we go beyond your next meeting, we will not be able to meet that for 2016. Brian, any comments you would like to make?
Randy, would we be still required to hold that public hearing this early if we were making the decision to not move forward with 2015 and instead be looking at a 2016, 2017, 2018 schedule?
Yes, we would. The reason we're talking about doing the public hearing now, while the board mulls the question as to whether you wish to go there, is because it's about a year process. It takes almost a year to get through the application process to determine whether or not we would be awarded funding to go forward with the project should the board decide to go in that direction. So it's preliminary, but we do have to have a plan. We have to have a design and a plan in place. Superintendent Page has been working on that and does have a plan in place, does have a design that would be available to be submitted. But again, it would not lock the board into going forward with the utility plan. It would basically just identify as to whether that funding was available to us for 2016, 17, 18. We would likely be looking at the project in 2016.
Thank you. Brian, anything that you wanted to add before this?
Just to add to the meeting on the 7th, and a little more information that we've kind of come up with as a company and looking at it. It really applies to just the revolving water fund. Those applications are real stringent on when they have to get in. That meeting, you're not going to have to determine at that meeting whether or not you move forward, but it does need to come to the public. And I think it's probably a real good opportunity just to talk water funding at that meeting anyway, and to have a little bit better of a plan put together. To be able to go after the revolving fund, there has to be a plan presented to the public as well. It's most likely we would still have to do a special meeting later in the month, even following that one, to have that plan further developed. We would be providing more information even before the end of this month to gear towards that potential meeting if it looks like that's an alternative, to go in that direction. The revolving fund is the tougher time frame to meet. It's very likely, even if we made the May deadline, that we still may not be able to use those on the project until 17, not necessarily 16. There's no guarantees on that. RD is probably a little easier to work with in terms of the water, but there's still a lot of information that has to be gathered in that in terms of looking at your system as a whole. Eventually, anything that we do utility-wise needs to go to the DEQ as well for approval on your system. We can't just say, we're only gonna do this portion right now because it's gonna help the road fund. We gotta show that the overall plan, that it does make sense and that it ties into your overall water and sewer systems. Our preliminary analysis of it and going through this with Kirk Page, did show that a significant number of the roads would meet that. You know, so we feel pretty confident going in that type of direction in regards to funding, but there's never any guarantees on funding. The one thing that you really need to be aware of too is the fact that you're getting hit hard right now because of the tax situation. But I've talked to some of the local contractors in the area and also the bigger paving companies that would be doing this work. This year, we're gonna see pricing for projects this scale cheaper than I've seen probably in 13 years. And it's because of the oil industry and the surplus of oil that's available. So how long those numbers will hold on, you know, can be real critical to how much you can truly accomplish, you know. That's why in our proposal, what you see, we still have that second phase, but we're not recommending that you go to task 200 or 300. But in terms of surface paving operation that don't require a lot of paving, those contracts can be put together really quick. And I think it'd really be in the township's interest to not throw out this season yet with that flux. I mean, we can be talking, I don't want to throw numbers out there. I know some of the numbers because of what I've been told, but it's not fair in terms of, you know, what may come out in the future. But we could be talking as much as 20 to 25% savings on some of these roads from the initial estimates that we were reviewing. We're already knowing there was some help. I'm seeing 10 to 15% more than we were starting to look at. So there are some positive things out there on that end. Unfortunately, they hit at the wrong times. You know, if you had your funding, this project could have really taken off this year, especially with those pricing. And so what we're recommending is you really need to do this, whether or not you go back to the voters. There's some discrepancies yet in terms of what the overall plan needs to be. And if you're going to go back to your voters, I think it's very important that you truly have a realistic budget developed over 3, maybe a 4-year project. This thing may need to get extended another year or so, depending on the on what's available. It's also important you look at the language of the millage as it was passed to make sure, you know, that there's not limitations to what you can do. I know our company has, and I know Randy's looked at it too, and we've all kind of been working behind the scenes and contacting, you know, the people we need to make sure that we're still staying within, you know, your limitations and what you have. So that's why we brought forward to you with our proposal that let's look at real cost here. We're not going to get out on the ground with survey equipment and soil borings, but we are going to get out and visually do a lot more inspection. We're going to look at the history of a lot of these roads, and we really got to look at what effect your utilities have on doing your road projects, and that's why we're recommending that first task only.
And what Brian's referring to with regard to reduced costs is cost of blacktop, obviously, which is what basically we would be using as our surface material. So the prices are down right now, and as he said, normally, you know, as usual, the prices come down when we have the least available funds to attack the project. And as a reminder, the reason we're talking about the utilities is because utilities are constructed within the right-of-way, and they're generally they generally impact the road. You have to take the road up basically to do the utilities, so the utility project would pay for part of the road repair. That's why we're talking about the utilities. It reduces the overall amount that we have to have for our road project, but you're adding a utility project, which is costly as well. So you know, realistically, you're expanding well beyond the $7.5 million project when you include the utilities. But it reduces the overall. It's, you know, it's a chicken egg type of an issue. Yeah, and the question is how much do you want to bite off, or do you want to go back to the voters, just so the voters have an idea of where we're at. The $7.5 million project, based on current financial conditions and current bonding requirements, over that 15-year period would require 2.9 mils. So 1.4 more than what's already been approved for the full 7.5 million. The 1.5 mils that are currently approved over that 15-year period will finance a $5 million project. So that's what the financial impact, we've talked about the impact on the library. This is the financial impact on us of the tax decisions.
Questions for Brian or Randy?
So I guess before you tonight is a question of, A, do you want to go back to the voters to talk to them about it, or do you want to have staff and UPEA proceed, potentially not levy the full project in 2015, finance a smaller project for 2015, and do only those roads that would not require any kind of subsurface work, basically surface fixes. They will not be 25-year fixes like we had talked about. It'll be shorter duration, probably 7 to 10 years. And we'll be looking at it again.
So, I mean, realistically, UP engineers and architects would like to see us move forward. Their proposal
Correct.
is let's keep moving, and you'll have to figure out what you're going to do about the shortfall.
Their
Your
proposal is,
recommendation to us is that we don't do anything this year other than hold the public hearing and look for additional funding.
we're taking two different postures. One is UPEA is saying, yes, we can do a part of the project in 2015. They're proposing a contract to do the groundwork, basically, to put us in position to do that during 2015. In other words, continue on our schedule to start this year. I'm coming at it just like I did in your budget session, saying, I'm not going to roll dice. We don't have the money in 2015. So let's not levy the millage. Let's work on 2015 to come up with the financing to try and do the full $7.5 million project from outside sources as well as our internal sources, but start it in 16, 17, 18. So we're coming at it from a little bit different. I'm coming at it from your budget manager standpoint and not really knowing right now for sure what our actual revenues are going to be.
So the downside for us delaying it a year is that we may lose some opportunity, the cost of money, because things are cheaper right now, oil prices are down.
Correct.
We maybe could get, just on an economy of scale, get more roads paved because of lower
Correct.
asphalt costs.
That's correct. Roads that would not require and are not scheduled for any kind of utility work within the next 10 years.
But us trying to move forward on the original 1.5 mils, I mean, I look at the chart and I'm saying to do what we originally said is actually going to be 2.9. I mean, it's almost a doubling of the program,
Correct.
the millage that we're going to ask residents for, and that clearly would have to go back to the voters from
Absolutely.
my standpoint in my mind before we could move forward.
Well, and I think the language of the millage, now, the language of the millage does give you some flexibility, because basically what it defined the project as is what the board defines it as. It was, a road facilities plan as adopted by the board, which is currently your $7.5 million project. So in my view, if you're going to modify that project in any manner, you need to have voter input.
Okay,
That's my view as your budget manager.
thank you. Other questions? Ernie?
If we have a meeting on April 7th, the interesting is, what's that going to really tell us any more than now? If we don't get anybody here to talk to us and that, then we maybe, right now, same thing we're having right now, which direction we go.
Correct.
We're talking about, a 3-year construction to get it all done at this point in time. Can we move that out to a 5-year construction with the same millage we have? We're just going to have to expand it out.
Well, the issue, it's a yes and no answer. I hate to do that, but yes, we could do that. You could spread it out for that 5 years. The problem is that you have to have the funds up front to do the project that was going to be paid by the millage collected in future years. Let me get it straight. In future years, you still have to have the funds up front to pay the contractors to do the work, and that's where we're running into the issue is with the bonding rates the way they are and the bonding programs the way they are, we're not going to have enough money at the 1.5 mils.
The only upfront money we're going to get is what the bond council looks at and says, this is what you're going to have to pay back over the course of 15 years. So this is all you're going to get up front, which is $5 million. So
That's
you
correct.
stretch it out, we still only have $5 million if we're only going to collect 1.5 mils. So really, it's scale back the project to get it done for $5 million, or increase millage because it doesn't appear that we can get this project done for $5 million.
Right, and the catch-22 that you're running into is the $5 million project is not the project that you put to the voters. It's not the project you presented to the voters, it's not the project that they approved.
Also looking at that, because we're projecting it on our real property value, whatever that may be.
Reduced, yeah, it's,
Point in time, looking at that increase, if we bond it, they're bonding at 1.5 million for X number of years.
correct.
And are they figuring in the escalation of the value of the properties going up, or is it set at a fixed rate?
Well, the only property that's going to go up under the current status with the tax tribunal is new construction. All of the properties that are currently in place that have challenged, and there are lots of them, as Trustee Durant mentioned, it's a long list, and it's all corporate driven. It's not local businesses, it's corporate, it's their corporate headquarters driving it. But we did calculate, the figures that you have in front of you are calculated upon those businesses that we currently have. We've projected a 3% growth, which would be new businesses.
I think the other thing that the board needs to consider is we don't know what the May election is going to look like as far as road funding.
That's another aspect.
It's a wild card that's come out since we started this whole process. If it were to pass, not that the road commission would have any money until 3 years from now, I believe, but it should impact this project if the road commission is going to have money for local roads. If that passes, so there's a big if, and we won't know that until after the election. And then it would be, Jim's not going to be able to tell us what we're going to get. They're going to be paying down some debt for the first couple of years. It'd be the third year before they ever had any increased funding. And then what would be our percentage of that funding that's going to come to us, which could conceivably impact the $7.5 million price tag, but probably not by $2.5 million.
No, and basically, you have to remember, if the proposal passes in May, the first year is going to pay down bonding costs for MDOT. The second year will pay down bonding costs, the projects that are already bonded for the road commission. So it wouldn't be until year 3 before we would see any road money being applied to roads, basically, out proceeds of that proposal. And at that point, remember, we're on a 60-40 split with the road commission, so they would only be potentially ponying up 40% of what their actual cost was.
Jason?
Just wondering if the board had considered, with the May election occurring, or that ballot question occurring, if perhaps going back to the residents and asking for a longer millage rather than an increase in the amount.
That is another option, is extending it out.
Yeah, if we extended it like another 5 years or something, but then part of our projection, I thought when we put our plan together, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was about being able to maintain the roads, so we did it in a
Correct.
15-year thing with the idea that the life cycle of the roads in those 15 years, that at the end of 15 years, when it was paid for, we'd still be able to guarantee them that the roads that we fixed, we'd also maintained, and we were going to deliver them with a Paisley rating 6 or better, even out at 15 years. Is that correct? Dave, you worked on that, yeah?
Yeah, that is correct, and that's one of the reasons that we're looking at, when Brian mentioned RD, that's rural development, which is USDA rural development funding, and the reason we're looking at that is because that funding can go out as long as 40 years, which would, but again, there's a cost to that. It's not free money. So you're also talking about up to 40 years of interest as well. So, I mean, it's not.
But if we extended it out to an additional 5 years, for example, we still are changing the scope of the project.
Correct.
We'd have to ask the voters for it, number one. Number two, would we still be able to guarantee that at 20 years they'd be at a Paisley rating of 6 or better? And we would not be able to do that.
And I think realistically that is critical. We have been very fortunate that our voters have supported millage questions that we've put out because we've delivered what we told them we were going to deliver, and that was our objective. We've done that with all of the road projects we've done. We've defined it at the beginning. passed the millage, and then delivered it as promised within that millage. In fact, we've on two of the three major projects, we paid it off before we did. We ended up not levying all of the millage because with the growth that we had, which we're not going to have now, the growth in taxable value, we were able to pay that off ahead of time. So we've lost the ability to do that with the tax tribunal decision. And that was a piece of what was factored into the $7.5 million project, was that incremental growth that historically for the last almost 20 years we've been experiencing. That's over.
On our last meeting, we talked about this utility program, and that would help with the cost of one lane. And that's why we talked about moving ahead with the project, and with some limited projects, but not to do the major ones until the utility projects are done, and they could help pay for that. And we would go along in the first year in 2015 is to go out and do some of the ones that we have to resurface a little bit without any sewer projects.
That's correct.
And I thought, I was under the understanding that that's probably the way we should proceed with that. And how much would by doing that, isn't that going to help our cost, overall cost?
Well, that is one of the options. One of the options, and it's in the UPEA proposal, is to go forward in 2015, bond that portion of the project, and from memory, I think that was like $1.5 million,
It was in that neighborhood.
something in that range. Bond that project for $1.5 million, while we're going through the application process for the revolving funds, and basically that's not a given, and that's where I'm looking at it from your budget standpoint, is if we bite off the first year and bond that, we're not delivering the project that the voters approved with the 1.5 mils, so, you know what I mean?
We've always been pretty much upfront. By now, they understand some of it, and by explaining why we have to do it and how we have to do it, I just feel very confident that they want to see something. They want to see something now.
Right, and the issue then becomes one of getting into the SRF, the State Revolving Fund grant, or loan process that is not a guaranteed process. We may not get approved, and if we don't, then we've got, a very small portion of our project done, and we've got it bonded. Now we have to levy the millage to pay for that, and it's.
Well, I think we have to go along with this utility project to get that started,
That's the public hearing.
That's a public hearing. And I really like to see us proceed this year in 2015 and get some of these roads paved. And yes, we talked about knocking down the Pazer. We might not be able to go out 10 years or 11 years. We might have to come back in 7 years or something like that. But I just don't want to go tell them that we can't do the project,
I don't think any of us want to tell them that.
But we're trying to be right up front with them and tell them that. It might be a revised part of it, but at least we're going to start doing something, so.
Yeah, that's, if I can just try to clarify a little bit here, in terms of the proposal we have in front of you, we're not standing here telling you that you need to make a decision tonight. We think that's a big mistake, to just make a decision based on, we've all kind of been pulling numbers out of the air, to be quite honest with you, until we know exactly what's in line. We're asking you for permission to move forward with your staff, the road committee, the board, with that first part of our proposal. Right now, we've been working with your staff gratis. I'm a township resident. I got a lot of years here, and I've got a lot of interest in the area myself. We're at a point where I can't put everybody that I need to out front, so we need something to start moving, and you need some hard engineering to start looking at where are we really. And we see the April 7th meeting more as a meeting to give the public more information in terms of what roads are we talking about, what are the real budgets, where are we, so that you can make a more informed decision. You're giving your residents more opportunity to come forward again. Our intention, and I think we brought this up at the last one, is to be a regular part of your agenda moving forward, probably over the next 3 to 5 years, to do this right, to continually update this and where things can go. you have a lot of other smaller projects, a lot of things that are already going on in the area that cover this. You see right now with what happening with the deep frost impact we had again this year, there's going to be changes to your ratings. The guarantee that pays the ratings are going to hold on to a 6 for 15 to 20 years is near impossible until you do a little more research on it. And even then, there's always something. The whole township is made up a lot of mixtures of soils and different conditions that vary throughout the area. So there's a lot of reasons why that happens. So again, what we've tried to do for you is baby step you into the process and get our company involved in helping your staff get the answers that you need to bring forward to the public. And we're more than willing to stand up and do that and do the presentations we need to. And we think that the April 7th meeting is a good opportunity to get some harder numbers, give you more information to move forward and make a clear decision on where you go. It may take you 2-3 more months before you decide exactly where things end up going.
Now, the map that was at your sites was also included in the packet that was sent out to you. Those are the roads that would be talked about for 2015. If your decision is to go forward in 2015 and do those roads that do not involve utility work. And it identifies what kind of application would be done on those roads.
Okay. What's the board's pleasure? Lynn?
I have a couple questions, I guess. I don't know how many hours I spent looking at this. This is tough. I guess where I'm confused is if we, you're proposing 3 phases just for this first part, this for the first year. Okay, so if that's, the first thing is, where does the 125,000 come from then? We've got to come up with that. The second thing is I don't think we should put this off, because the need is there and the public voted. I mean, it wasn't like by one vote. It was 70%, I think, or something, wasn't it?
Over 70%, yeah.
Yeah, so these people want this and they're expecting it. And now, if we can't deliver, that's different. But I think we need to get to the point where we can all say, yep, this is a good decision, one way or the other, how we do this. We need to feel good about it because we did so much due diligence and these guys put in so many hours for meetings and answering questions. And I hate to lose this year, especially with costs being lower. But I don't want to jump on this and then find that we've got a whole year's worth of construction we can't do. So I'm wondering, if we come up with this 125, first of all, then how do we balance out, and I'm thinking some of this will answer some of that. The project from the utility standpoint versus the lower cost in not concrete,
Asphalt, yeah.
asphalt, thank you, that's the word I was looking for. And then maybe whatever other, I don't think that's altering our main premise for what we asked in the millage. I think if we deliver what we were trying to say in the millage question, I think we can divert from that a little bit if it means, making something last a little longer, or I don't want to say taking shortcuts because that's not what I'm talking about. It's like massaging a project. Things are going to come up. It's no different than what they did with the skating rink. Things have to change. You had to change the way that the ice went. I mean, I think we should have that flexibility and the ability to be that flexible to get into this project and see where it's going to go. We may end up changing in our favor, but I really don't think we should. We definitely need to do the public hearing to let people know what's happening, but I don't think we should lose this year. That's a lot of, I don't know. And I don't know that I look at it as being carving out a piece of the project. If that's part of the whole scope of the 15 years is to start strategically planning this, that's the first phase of that plan, in my mind, that it wouldn't be really changing what we said we were going to do, because our focus is still to get it done. And I think we'll be able to have some growth in the midst of it to help fund it. We know we've got projects in the offing, and I don't know, with some of the public pressure, from what I heard even at the library tonight, they may start putting pressure on some of these corporations, like Target or Menards or any, and just say, you've got to stop these proceedings. That's kind of the gist I was getting from tonight, that they're not really going to let this go forward. They want everybody to start calling their legislators and saying, this has got to stop now before it gets too bad. And I'm not saying that means we're going to have a bundle of money, in another year because everybody's going to be in an uproar. But I think by the time we get to year 3 or 4, that this is going to kind of massage itself out a little bit. And I just really hate to see, however we come up with this 125, I hate to see us lose that opportunity. These guys need to give us a little more information. I think they can do it if we come up with the money and start it.
I can clarify this a little bit, right? The, realistically, and that's why I keep saying the first evaluation phase, the 30, that's in there, that's kind of reevaluating what is there. What you see in the balance of that, the other 95, when you look at what was in there, engineering costs were budgeted in your millage. So like that first year of just paving projects, there was a pretty large percentage in there. It's one thing we picked up on right away. Your first year, you had over $600,000 budgeted for engineering services to do those roads. These first roads that we picked out of here are what would be seal coating and just pavement overlays, and they don't require a lot of services in there. So that's why, there's $500,000 in your first year that we think don't spend it all on engineering. Let's see that those engineering dollars go where they need to, and those are more in, when you get into percentages that were used on the road jobs, those are engineering percentages that are done when you're doing a water main or a sanitary job where we have to get DEQ permitting and we're tying into commercial businesses and residents, and we have a lot more grade change and things like that. When it comes to getting a contractor out to put an overlay over the top of your road, we can do a real general plan that is identifying streets and contouring that we can take off your air photo enough information, and then with just a little bit of field support we can do that. So the 125 that you're referring to, the 30 is really the only thing that's outside of what was in the original street budget. So that balance 95, if you're wondering, that should come out of the road millage project, the same thing it was there. So what you're really looking at is that 30 and how you determine to fund that. It may roll back into this after we see a RD project or a revolving fund. We can use those dollars, can be part of that funding mechanism, and that's usually the way we'll do a rural development. It's part of the engineering costs and things like that. We also as a company have different ways to defer some of our costs, if you're not getting the money up front. And those are things that we'll work with Randy and the board on as we move forward. Your bigger engineering costs and, are really coming when you look at the water and the sewer. So that's why we're saying right now, if somehow we can do some paving, let's just do what's paving. What we've run through is really, with the cost and everything that's there and the mileage that's there, we found a few roads that weren't included in the last numbers we looked at. But if you strictly use the millage, there is enough to put the blacktop on all the roads. It's what you gotta do underneath that we need to make sure that it's there, so.
Trustee Durant, in answer to your two questions. Your first question, the $125,000 would have to come out of the general fund. You basically would then, in essence, be making a decision that you're going to levy the first year's 1.5 mils, which would be levied later in the year to be collected early next year, to reimburse that. The second question about the utilities, remember on the utility projects, how utility projects are repaid. Rates. So you would be increasing the rates to pay that off over time.
I do want to clarify that a little bit, though. What we looked at in the initial rate, rural development, and it requires a rate study to be done. So our staff that does water projects already have looked at your numbers that have been shared with us. What we're proposing to try to do is anything that we would do that would require water or sewer, is that it be done within your current structure. You do have surplus in both your water and sewer. They've been managed very well by your staff going forward. So, you know, there's dollar amounts. I think we're right now thinking we could probably do up close to a $3 million project with the water and not affect the rates, based on what we've seen preliminarily. We still have to go through some more things to make sure that's there. Sewer, we're not quite as sure on, you know, what we can accomplish with that, but there is, you know, something to be gained. But those really need to be dug into, and that's what part of our first phase is also doing. So the last thing we want to do is stand up and yeah, you can do your roads, but you're going to pay more for your water. You don't want to do that. So
Yeah,
what we're trying to present is some way to do this so that it's, you know, it's done the way the intention was, that this millage is going to cover it.
And that does require, excuse me, that does require applying those funds, reserve funds. Excuse me.
Well, Roger?
Nobody really asked me to look at this, but I brought the ballot language with me.
Okay.
And the key sentence in it is saying it's for years 2000. So the purpose of repairing, maintaining, and improving local roads designated in the Marquette Township Local Roads Rehabilitation Schedule adopted by the Marquette Township Board, and other road repair, maintenance, and improvements within the township as prioritized by the Marquette Township Board. That's what was presented to the voters. So I guess one of the key questions is, first of all, are you changing what roads will have repairs, maintenance, or improving done to them in the scheme of things? Are there some roads that were in the, excuse me, in the road rehab schedule that now are not going to be repaired or maintained? If so, that's problematic. On the other hand, if you're just changing how much or when it gets done, that maybe isn't so problematic. But people voted on a specific road rehabilitation schedule that was adopted by the township board. So the more that you're deviating from that schedule that was presented, that language is right in your ballot proposal, the more that's going to be subject to scrutiny.
So what let me get this straight, Roger. If we revise that plan to mean that these roads, some of the roads who may have been scheduled for reconstruction, and we revised it to just doing an overlay on that road, for example, does it still fit the ballot language or no?
I think it probably does still fit the ballot language then, because it's saying, it's referring to the roads designated in the schedule. But let's say that you decided to just completely eliminate any repairs to this particular group of streets or roads, then I think that's problematic.
Okay.
The millage does not specifically say that it needs to be for seal coating versus new asphalt versus digging halfway to China to get a better base. But it does designate which roads, in the sense that you've got a specific schedule that, and I wasn't privy to seeing specifically what that schedule is, but the more you deviate from this, what that adopted plan was that was presented to the voters voted based on the plan that was disseminated in a variety of public hearings and so forth. So that's the crux of the issue that I guess we can't let get away from us.
Okay, so if we started it, that's my biggest concern. If we started it and we start to levy the millage this year because we've started the project, we pretty much need to then move forward with the project, which may mean we're trying to find $2.5 million out of the general fund to complete the project moving forward. And that would be a concern. Jason, okay.
I believe, Dave, we can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that the plan covers all local roads that are in the township. So as far as diverting from not doing a road to doing this road, that wouldn't exist because all roads are included.
That wasn't my point. What I was saying is, as a cost-cutting mechanism, if you start eliminating roads altogether that don't get done throughout whatever your time frame is, that's a problem.
Right.
I know the plan said all roads. But if you're going to modify the plan by eliminating roads, I think that's problematic. I don't think it's so problematic, just from analyzing the ballot language, if you, as I say, seal coat instead of put new asphalt.
Roger, I think. Is what you're saying is if we go forward in 2015 on the plan that's before us to do the, just the surface work, and we don't come up with $2.5 million, so we can't complete the rest of the roads, we're in violation of what the voters approved.
Potentially.
So, and that's my
Unless you come
concern.
up with some funding source to do the,
Yeah, and that's my concern, because it won't be the general fund. I can tell you,
Dennis?
we will not be generating that kind of money in the general fund.
Go ahead, Pete.
We also told them that when we do this project, we're not gonna put covering on the road and then dig it up again. All right, now we can find out that some of the water projects that's scheduled ahead of us should be done first. And so we sort of looking at this utility project to get that done. So we might have changed, example, Huron Street, all right? We might put that off another year because we want to do some utility work on there. And we get that done, so we won't have to do it for 40, 50 years. So that seems to be a smarter move. Is that going to violate what we said we're going to do? We said we're going to do it. It might be bounced a year, one of the roads, because of the utility project. That's going to be a necessity thing, and in the long run, we're going to save money by doing it that way, because the utility project is going to pay for, say, one lane of it, piece of the road, so we're not have to taking our money for the roads to do that part of it.
if Huron Street is a designated street in the plan, which it is, and you're doing repairing, maintaining, or improving with some of this millage money, then no, I don't see that as a problem by virtue of whether it gets done in 2016 or 2018 or whatever year it gets done. But if you were to say, well, gee, we don't have enough money, so we're not going to do anything on Huron Street, then I think you've got a ballot language problem that you're not in compliance with what you
Some of these
presented to
things
the
on our
people.
map here, is we might shift it a year because of the utility project. But we're still gonna do it. They're still on our grid to get that particular roads, to do what we said we're gonna do is gonna get done. All right, now we might modify the plan a little bit because of the utility project, because we do not wanna start putting a blacktop down and then 3 years from now dig it up, because that's the biggest thing that people come and told us about. We don't want you to do that. I said, no, we're not going to do that. And that was a consensus of the road committee, that we weren't going to do it.
You have latitude in that sense, I think. But you still run into the issue of if you make too many changes and deviate too far from that the local roads rehabilitation schedule that was adopted, that's where your problem comes in. So that if there are roads, at the risk of being redundant, that aren't getting any repair, maintenance, or improving from the millage money, and they were originally supposed to get repair, maintenance, or improvement with the millage money, then you haven't complied.
Okay, let me ask a different question. Let's assume we go forward with the plan for 2015. And we levy the millage and we do that work in 2015. We do these roads that don't require any subsurface utility work. And we're not successful with the revolving loan funds or with RD. and we don't have any funds for 16, 17, or 18, what's our liability?
That's something that requires a little bit deeper analysis than just,
My point exactly.
We might not be done tonight then.
Well, I mean, we will have done some road repairs, yeah, you know, and there will be improvements in some of the major roads. There'll be a shorter-term improvement, but if we can't go forward with the rest of the project, we're obviously not gonna levy, you know, the second and third year of the millage, but have we accrued any liability for that first-year levy that we didn't do for
understand
some of
that.
the people who paid and aren't gonna have any road work done? You know, and that's,
Yes, I think.
from that point forward, I
Bill.
think we shoot ourselves, from that point forward, I
You
think we
think?
shoot ourselves in the foot for any future millage question, and that's a concern.
Right,
That's why we have to have this meeting, hearing, and explain.
yep,
Dennis?
yep.
So then, can we actually not use, like, general fund funds? Do we have to exclusively use the millage to fund
No, we
this?
could use general fund, but it's just that with the state of our general fund based upon
Right.
the tax tribunal decisions, we don't have the funds to count on to utilize moving forward.
Yeah, but I thought he kept saying to use millage funds, and I thought, well, maybe that's exclusive, because what you're trying to say is don't deviate from your original plan.
No, we can do anything we want with general fund money.
Okay.
The issue is, after we have refunded the funds, tax funds that we've collected in 12, 13, and 14, there's only gonna be about $150,000 left in the general funds fund balance.
Yeah, but I mean, even in year 3, we'll have built that up some more, but I was more
Not
worried
much.
that we
It'll
couldn't.
only-
u-
it'll
No,
only
not
build-
to
It
that
will only
extent.
build up by new construction.
Right, but I just want to make sure we can use other funds.
Right.
We're not limited to just the millage funds.
But remember, if a major project, like the ones that we have in the hopper now for construction in 2015, will not be on the tax roll until 2017 for 2018 collection.
Right.
So it's, you know, it's gonna, there's a lag period before we have the revenue coming in.
What's the board's pleasure? What do we want to do?
Okay, if I understand this right, then we can make a motion to authorize UPEA to go ahead with the evaluation phase,
Phase one.
and it would cost us $30,000. It's going to hone in a little bit more on some of the numbered questions we had tonight, correct?
yes.
And give us a little more information options. I think we owe the voters at least that, whether we wait until after a public hearing next week or we do it tonight. I think we should do it tonight so that if we have a public hearing, we have more information. And I don't know that they can put it together that quickly,
Okay,
but
now, the public hearing will not be for roads. The public
It's
hearing will
the
be for
utilities.
for going forward with the revolving loan funds proposal, basically. So
Right.
that won't be roads.
but it'd still be part of the project, so
It will
the
be
discussion will
purpose-
expand.
Right, the purpose for going forward with that public hearing and going forward with the application process would be to pull revenue in to offset some of the road costs. Correct.
Right.
Ready?
Well, we also could have a public hearing on the roads at the same time that evening,
We could.
yeah, at the same time, and that,
I was just gonna ask that, yeah.
get that going. And I think what Lynn's saying is that first 30,000 is, to me, it's almost a necessity just to get this information out there so we as a board know where we're going, so that we can make some decisions on that. And then hopefully we can answer the questions of the residents when they come forward, and that too. So-
Lynn, was that a motion you made?
Yes, I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
Okay.
So your motion is to repeat it, Lynn?
To go ahead and authorize UPEA to proceed with the evaluation phase. It says 100, evaluation phase for $30,000, not to exceed.
Okay. I mean, Brian, you're asking us, to start this thing, you're asking $125,000, right?
That's that's if we get into road projects, just to move it forward. What we recommend you do in the proposal, if you read it, is that before we move to any phase, before we go to a road design, we want you to reconsider that and be sure that's the direction we're going, because
So
we
just the
understand.
evaluation phase
Yeah,
portion of your proposal is, you're fine with moving forward for $30,000? Okay. Ernie?
Okay, the 30,000, and looking at phase one here, there's a couple items in here. Evaluate the water fund and possible water projects and sewer fund and impact sewer. Can we assume a percentage of that 30,000 would come out of the enterprise fund
Yes.
at that point in time, so the general fund won't take a hit of 30,000 right away?
Not all of it. Some of it will be out of the public works because it'll be evaluating the water and potentially sewer as well.
We got that, so. But, in listening to everyone talking here, I think it is imperative that we seriously consider what we can do this year and that. How we do it, I'm not sure yet, but I think we have to start thinking about that. And it may be that we can't do something, say, in 2017, because them dollars aren't there, and we hold off and move to 2018 and that. We may have to skip a year and that. But the plans are laid out that we're going to address everything. It just now, because of the dollar amounts, we may have to skip a year and accumulate some dollars and then move forward on that.
Right. Now, and also remember from last week's, or from the last board meeting's discussion, one of the things that's out there is we're going to be retiring the revolving loan fund debt, the debt retirement. That'll be coming off in, I think, 25?
25. yeah.
2025, so that will drop off, so that cost to the residents is going to go away, so, yeah. That's part of this whole long-term look in terms of revenue.
But I think going ahead with the first phase, task 100, and then at the April 7th meeting, have one on the water and on the roads, both
2 public hearings.
2 public hearings, and get the people in here and explain to them what we're facing and how we're going to try and accomplish it in that.
Okay.
And we'll be able to put something in the water bills, too.
Mm-hmm.
off
It'll be going
back
out
of the
probably next week.
flyer or something.
Other comment? No? Well, there's a motion and a second on the table to agree to move forward with UP engineers and architects in the evaluation phase and not to exceed amount of $30,000. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Secretary?
I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing on April 7th for the SRF and for the roads, both.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to schedule those public hearings. Any comment? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Ernie?
Looking at the agreement for, from EPA and, that they've got laid out here, and they've got all 3 tasks set in here. I think we need to alter that, make sure it's just task 1, and indicate who's gonna be signing this from the township's perspective and that too, so.
I believe on the second page of their proposal, they designated as Phase 1,
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
yeah, it is phase 1, and actually, we're more than happy to just do we can give Randy a separate contract that is only for phase 1, and won't have the other 2 on there. We would move forward. At least you have who knows how the next tasks go anyway. We're just trying to give you an idea on if it's strictly roads, so we'll give Randy
Yeah,
a
it's- if you look
separate
at-
contract that's just.
I can
If
see
you
it
look
now,
at page C, identified as C,
under special conditions.
correct. UPA will proceed with task 100 only, task 200 and 300 require board approval prior to proceeding.
The only other question is who we're authorizing to sign, either supervisor, clerk, or the manager.
What's your pleasure?
Clerk's fine, I guess if it's my motion, if you're amending the motion.
Yep.
Clerk's fine.
And Pete, you seconded that?
Yes.
So the amended motion to have the clerk sign or execute it, everyone's okay with that? Secretary?
For my minutes, just make it easier to make a new motion authorizing me or the clerk to sign it. And that'll be a little bit cleaner, so I don't have to go back and amend motions and such.
Okay,
Okay, that's
Somebody
fine. I
care to
make a
make that
motion
motion?
to have the clerk sign the contract with UPEA for Phase 1, or Task 1.
And I'll second it.
motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian. That'll bring us up to agenda item number 9A. Consider the proposed 2015 Michigan National Resources Trust Fund Development Grant and Recreation Passport Grant Application Resolutions, second reading. You do have a memorandum in your packet from Planner McCarthy dated March 10th, 2015, with the pertinent information on the two recreation grants. With recommendation that we move forward. Clerk Vitari.
Okay, a second reading on these. So the board had these the last time, and we approved it on the first reading, and it's up to the board's pleasure now. They've had that 2 weeks to look at it, and they are now in a resolution. They were in the resolution format before, but we can approve them with a roll call vote, and we'll move forward with them if the board so desires. And I'll make a motion on the first resolution. And let me see here. That's the pages are back.
Trust
to
fund,
me.
isn't it?
It's the trust fund.
RTF development.
I'll support it.
50,000, yeah.
Yeah, for the 50,000. Okay.
Motion and support. Any comment? Seeing none. Clerk Vitari.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee or is Treasurer Johnson.
Yes.
Trustee LaRue.
Yes.
Trustee Truscott.
Yes.
Trustee Durant.
Yes.
And Supervisor Limata.
Yes.
That resolution passes 6-0 and 1 absent.
Somebody care to make a motion to move the next resolution forward?
I'll make a motion to accept the Recreation Passport Grant.
Support.
I forget the amount, sorry.
The Lions Field Recreation Area Barrier Free Trail Project, RP 15-0041.
No, the amount I was looking for. That 21,7?
The application's for 45,000.
45, okay. Okay, 45,000.
There's a motion and a second. If there's no other comment, Clerk Vitari.
Trustee Durant.
Yes.
Trustee Truscott.
Yes.
Trustee LaRue.
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson.
Yes.
Clerk Rattari is yes. And Supervisor Limata.
Yes.
That motion again carries 6 yeses, 0 no, and 1 absent.
So there you go, Mike. You yes, you may. I would say you had some time reserved. If you'd like to share your wisdom with us now, we'd appreciate it.
You have the wisdom. You voted exactly the way we were hoping. And Trustee Durant asked earlier about feedback as to things you're doing well. And one of the things that the Rec Committee really appreciates the unanimous support that we've had from this board. It started back in 2010. Mr. McCarthy informed us today that our recommended grant for last year was, the funding was approved, and this will be, a third attempt to get some more funding. And of course, with limited dollars, this is one way we can leverage money, and you have a very active rec committee, as evident at both parks. So thanks again for your support, and we look forward to working with you and be back next year.
Thanks for all your hard work on this, Mike. And the rest of the rec committee as well. Thank you, Planner McCarthy. The Next item on your agenda is 9B, consider committee appointment to the Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority. In your packet, you have a transmittal dated February 27th, 2015, from the Iron Ore Heritage Rec Authority Administrator, Carol Fulsher. She just wanted to bring it to our attention that Lynn Durant used to be our representative until we appointed Glenn Johnson last year, and his term is set to expire on April 1st. However, Mr. Johnson has expressed an interest to re-up his service for an additional 3-year term. Therefore, I included this in our packet tonight, and I would like to ask the board to consider supporting Glenn Johnson's reappointment to the Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority.
I'd like to make that motion.
Support.
Motion and support. Is there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thanks, Coach. You're up for another 3 years. The next item on our agenda is to consider budget amendment number 2015-03. Clerk Rattari.
Present to the board this evening the third budget amendment of our year, 2015-03, and it'll be referenced in the minutes as always. And the highlights of this budget amendment are to basically carry over the money from last year's budget to $55,000 to this year for the kiddie park purchase, and also additional funds for the Lions Field rink warming building at $31,500, and the change in the fund balance is $98,225, but it, again, some money was carried over from last year, so it really doesn't, it's an accounting thing, but it really doesn't hit the general fund like that. So,
If I may, it was carried over from 2 years.
yeah, 2 years ago.
For the kiddie park equipment, and the funding for the warming hut is not new money. That's carried money that was not expended in 2014 is being carried into 15.
So that is a motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Board member comment or questions? Not seeing any. Clerk Rattari.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue.
Yes.
Trustee Truscott.
Yes.
Trustee Durant.
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson.
Yes.
And Supervisor Limata.
Yes.
That motion carries 6-0 and 1 absent.
Thank you. Next item on your agenda is 9D, consider vehicle resolution. In your packet, you do have a resolution prepared by Civil Council confirming lack of ownership interest in a bus. I think it is self-explanatory when you read through the resolution. The former fire chief had acquired a bus under Marquette Township's name. The board had not taken any action in approving anyone to acquire a bus. What this resolution does is help clear up any question as to whether or not we claim any type of ownership, past, present, or future, in the bus that is mentioned in here with the VIN number. Therefore, this is just an effort by Civil Council to right a wrong or clear up any confusion about ownership, a legal right of ownership on that vehicle.
I move to support the resolution confirming the lack of ownership.
No, second.
Motion is second. Any comment or questions? Seeing none, Clerk Rattari.
Treasurer Johnson.
Yes.
Trustee LaRue.
Yes.
Trustee Truscott.
Yes.
Trustee Durant.
Yes.
Clerk Rattari is yes, and Supervisor Limata.
Yes.
That motion carries 6-0 and 1 absent.
Resolution is adopted. Thank you. The next item on your agenda is the manager's report. Manager Gerard.
First, the question. Did you have, in your packet, did you have copies of the February 10th Corridor Committee minutes?
No, it's not.
I just noticed they're not in mine either. I will send those to you tomorrow by email. Just two quick things that I want to address. First of all is I want to thank Dave Larson and Rob Milkey, two of our service workers, for the recognition they got from residents. There are only two that got the recognition, but I think it spreads to all of our service workers. We're very proud of the work that they do. Second thing, more importantly, is I want to reaffirm what has been sent out in emails, has been sent out in mailings, and has been put on our websites, that as of April 1st, our drop-off site is moving. As board members know, we've been in the process of transferring the former Township Hall property, the hall, the garage, and the 5 acres across the street. That is in process currently, so that will be privately owned. And as of April 1st, there will be no dumping allowed there on that private property any longer. No brush, no leaves, and no First Monday drop-off. That is being moved to the new North Country disposal site, which is a little ways up 492, just across the Negaunee Township line. It is a full recycling center. We do not currently have any alternative for the brush and leaf drop-off. So that will be there as well until we can come up with some kind of a resolution for that issue. So I know it's going to be confusing for residents, but we've looked at a number of different options, and that is really the only feasible option that we have at this point to continue that service. The alternative is to either convert it to a curbside drop-off, which would increase the rates required because there'd be an additional pickup, or to do a seasonal pickup as they do in some other communities of spring and fall. And we're working on those to try and come up with somewhere to do that other than curbside. So if there are any questions with that, I think we've advertised it appropriately. There will be a sign placed up there at that site probably by Thursday. Be a sign indicating it's private property, no dumping allowed.
I think, which I talked to the manager on this year, I think on the leaves and the brush and that's going to be the biggest concern.
It's going to be a problem.
Because right now, once we're going, they can drop it off any day of the week.
Right.
Now, if we can do it once a month, I hate to go back to what it was when I first got on the board back in the 90s and that. It appeared everywhere. Where there's an empty lot or something, all of a sudden
Correct.
it was filled up with something. So that's the one concern I have with that. And that we have to come up with something. I can't tell you what it is at this point in time.
Well, we are a growing community, and we're filling in, basically, so there's less and less property available for the purpose. We looked at the property down by our well field. The problem is we have our pressure-reducing valves and that are there right in the middle of the area that would be available. We used to have the area at adjacent to the Lions Park, which is now an ice rink, a warming hut. So from our standpoint, in terms of property that we own, we really don't have anywhere on property we own. And that is part of the issue, is that the rest of the property that's available, that's within a reasonable radius, is pretty expensive property and pretty valuable property for development. We are looking at alternatives, and as I said, one of the alternatives is to do a curbside pickup of brush, similar to what some of the other communities do. We would have to contract that because we don't have the equipment to do it. We don't have that kind of a public works department like some other communities do. We have looked at, as I say, we've looked at a number of options. We have had discussion with property owners about acquiring property, which would only be limited in use because it is development property and they intend to develop it. Now, along the lines of the household rubbish drop-off, the first of the month drop-off, most of the items that we had being dropped off there could still be dropped off at either Goodwill or at Best Buy. All of the electronics, TVs, everything like that, Best Buy will take. All of the other household items, clothing, books, things such as that, Goodwill will take as well, which are essentially in the same place as they were before. Where you run into an issue is with mattresses, furniture, things such as that. That can still be hauled to the county landfill, or it can be taken to the Negaunee site, the North Country site. So we're trying to accommodate as much as we can. We don't want to eliminate the service. We also don't want to increase the cost of the service.
Randy, what size area are you thinking we'd need?
We would
Like an acre?
probably need for the brush drop-off, which takes up the most space, probably an area 400 to 500 by 400 to 500 feet in area, basically for a drop-off that we would have to be able to get into to remove the material. As That's about the size of what we were using at our former site.
So if we had a resident who had property, and maybe you wouldn't know this, maybe it's even a legal question, would they be able to kind of like write that off if they donated, say, that size or an acre or something?
I would
Or a
suspect,
lot? Maybe if they had a lot in Trowbridge that they were not going to expand on?
I would
they?
suspect that they could. The problem you run into then is traffic issues in Trowbridge, and that's the problems we've looked at. By our well field, we looked at the well field entrance. There's an awful lot of public use for that area for biking, hiking, walking, and it's a terrible location from the standpoint of the roads. It's right on a major curve coming off of the golf course on Grove Street. South Vanderboom comes right into that intersection, so we just discounted that. We looked at a couple of sites off of Wright Street, but now you're dealing with the traffic going out to the Target intersection, and you're going to be mixing people with trailers and brush and everything else into that. It creates an issue, and that's where we came down to, is most of the places that we looked at almost exclusively had either a safety issue, a site issue, or a DEQ issue in terms of water.
But even then, a resident wouldn't have to say this is a lifetime thing. He could
No,
say,
they
for the
wouldn't.
next 5 years, I would donate this piece of my land, or,
That's true, but you need to be prepared for the reaction from their neighbors.
sure. Okay.
Did you ever consider the backside of the mall? In the very
Yes.
far end, way back there? Do we clean it up every day?
And we
There's
did.
space back there that's
We,
open.
we did look at that, and you're right, it's very seldom utilized, except in the wintertime for snow storage, but, for the 3.5 weeks of summer that we have, it would be fine. But,
But
yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
short-term
but yeah,
for the
right behind, you're talking about right directly behind the fire
Right
department,
behind our fire
basically.
hall,
Right behind the
over
fire
on
hall
the
on the
backside of the
parking
mall.
lot. Yeah, and that is one of the areas we looked at, again, that's privately owned and it's privately controlled. But yes, we are looking at all of those options. So if, getting back to Trustee Durant's comment, if there is somebody out there that has a piece of property that they would be willing to let us utilize, either by donation or by lease, certainly get in touch with me.
Any chance of getting the west side of the fire hall on the hill up there?
That was probably going to have something built on it this year.
Anything else?
We
Randy?
have, along those lines, we have looked in this area as well, but it violates covenants.
It's hard to get along with.
One more, Dennis.
Yep.
And I was thinking of this while we were talking about the road issue and the water project and everything. Where are we with the water authority and the 492 meetings that you have had with?
We are still discussing the water authority. You probably saw in the paper that Nagani is looking to utilize Teal Lake for water. Ishpeming is doing some issues with their infrastructure, so we are still talking about that. It is difficult to get commitment and buy-in because there is such uncertainty with legislation and with utilization of water, but it is still alive. The discussion is still going. I do have a draft authority agreement. We've talked with the City of Ishpeming, City of Nagani. We've talked as far away as Forsyth, as well as the other townships, Nagani Township, out west to West Ishpeming, about forming an authority, groundwater authority. So it is actively being discussed. I believe it was discussed at the MCTA meeting. Did it come up there? I'm not sure. I heard somebody had mentioned they were going to bring it up at the MCTA meeting, but I wasn't at the meeting. So that is still going forward. We still do have capacity to get to the lake, but there's a cash investment. There is an investment involved, and several of the municipalities are not in a position to be able to commit any funding.
Any other questions for Manager Gerard?
I have a couple.
Go ahead, Pete.
On your report, I have a couple of questions on street sweeping on Warner Street and then the crossover on Commerce there on the highway. Clean that up.
We will be
Are we
doing
on
that.
schedule for that?
We will be doing that this year as soon as the snow is gone.
All right. And also,
By we, I mean staff, not contracting.
Do you think we should put some signs up over at the ice rink, the parking lot, it's so muddy? We wish people would stay out of there for a while till it dries up a little bit, but we could block that off or put a sign, something like that. It's getting real bad over there.
It is. I was over there today, and people are still driving in there, and I think in about another week, we'll have natural blocking by the vehicles. They can't move. But yes, that's one of the things I'm going to be talking with our building and ground staff about tomorrow, is trying to block that off somehow to keep vehicles out of there.
And our road committee, we thought maybe have a little fundraiser for Lions Field, but if there anyone out there that, would like to donate money to the Lions Field for equipment or upgrades or something like that,
Certainly
We
welcome.
just have to contact you at the township then, yeah.
Absolutely. Or the Recreation Committee, for that matter.
Or they'd have to come and see you about giving the money.
Correct.
All right, that's all I have for you.
Thanks. Nothing else, we'll close the manager's report and move to public comment. Anyone wishing to make public comment this evening?
Just a couple items tonight. It's Dave Wiggins, Brookton Road. Lions Field update that I've been trying to get to you every meeting. We did get the concrete poured on the interior of the building last Tuesday, which worked out quite well because they put weight restrictions on Friday morning, which would have prohibited us from going any further with that. We're kind of at a standstill for the reason Trustee LaRue mentioned. It's kind of muddy out there. So we either need to let it dry up a little bit or get some more cold weather so it firms up a little bit so we can drive on it again. So we're kind of waiting here the next week or so just see if that dries up a little bit and so we can press on. Another issue is that UPEA award tonight for the engineering study. Board I would ask you to remember that initially when we put all the estimates together and the forecast for the order of repair, that was based strictly on PASER ratings. And it was based on estimates gathered from the Road Commission almost a year ago now. And it did not take into consideration any water sewer main replacement and the impact that would have on the order of repair. And it was always considered, and it's been talked about right along, is that when that stuff is factored in, it will impact the cost of that road repair and the order that those roads are should be repaired in. And that $30,000 contract moving forward, if it gets us nothing else, it will get us a more specific order of repair. It'll get us a more realistic cost of those repairs, and it will tie in the scheduled order of repair with the proposed water and sewer projects and clearly define what kind of an impact that's going to have on the dollars that are needed. And I think that's really important when we're looking at a $2.5 million shortfall. As far as the 2015 project moving forward, the only plus side of that is, as Brian mentioned, is the lower cost in asphalt, and that's a reasonably significant impact because if you're talking about spending $2.5 to $3 million in 2015 to do that, those road repairs that he mentioned, that's some $500,000 worth of savings in asphalt alone. So I mean, it's nothing to be just discarded as not important. That takes our $2.5 million shortfall down to $2 million, which $2 million's a lot to find someplace, but it's not quite as difficult as $2.5 million. So I think that was a good thing moving forward with that UPA contract tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment. Additional comments from board members? Lynn?
No, thanks.
Anna? Ernie?
The only comment I have is on the cutting of the trees on the different streets within the township because of the bat thing. I just by accident was going through some literature on the Google on that, and the state of Wisconsin is not very happy at the state as a whole because of what it's all about in that and the effect it can have on everybody in that. So it was an article in the Milwaukee Journal on it, and they had a map of what is affected. It's about 45% of the United States is going to be affected by that. So it's a major concern in that. In the state of Wisconsin, the legislators are are very concerned with how it's going to affect that state overall, so. It's something to keep in the forefront to see what's going to happen with all of us next. They're concerned with logging and everything, all that, so how that's going to affect with the logging. So,
Interesting.
that's all.
Thanks, Ernie. Pete?
You can talk about 3-on-3, the hockey tournament?
I can.
Okay. All right, I won't have nothing to say then.
Clerk Katari?
Again, Monday, April 6th is your last day to register to vote for that May election, 4 o'clock. And April, sometime in April, I believe it's the 28th, if we do have to go the route of a new millage question, that April 28th, I believe, deadline is that deadline for the August election, if we so desire to go that route. So the board, just so the board realizes, if we do go that route, we do have a short time frame to meet for August. And again, it wouldn't be that much further down for November either. These questions have to be 90 days out, so it doesn't give up much time to really analyze it, I should say, or get the information out to the voters also, if so just giving those timelines.
Thanks, Randy. Pete alluded to the 3-on-3 that was scheduled for March 14th. It's hard to complain when you live where we do about a week of 50-degree weather. And so that week of 50-degree weather made the ice go away or turn into a few inches of water and slush. So you may have heard we made that decision on Tuesday, I believe, beforehand, or Wednesday. I did go to the radio station the next day just to announce it, and Brian Klaus from Synergy Fitness had the great idea that why cancel it when we can just postpone it? So it was postponed to June 21st, first day of summer, and it will be a roller hockey 3-on-3 tournament held out at the new ice rink at Lions Field. I do believe the warming shack will be done and ready, because this is the UP after all, and June 21st, you never know. But we're pretty sure we won't have ice on June 21st. Bring your rollerblades, and same kind of deal applies. You can sign up at Synergy Fitness. There will be new posters coming out. We're looking forward to kicking it off. And yes, we wanted to see it as an ice rink. We knew there was a danger when the event committee had to push it back first a week and then an additional 2 weeks. We had a lot of concerns about soft ice. We didn't really consider there'd be no ice. However, if we'd done it the week before, we would have pulled off with flying colors. But again, really hard to complain about 50-degree weather when you live where we live for a whole week. I was also handed a note that said April 2nd is the target date for hanging drywall, apparently, out at the warming shack. And if there's folks who live in the community and are just trying to figure out a way to give back, and you hang board or sling mud, April 2nd sounds like a good time for you to volunteer to stop off at the new warming shack and give us a hand. My wife already volunteered me. I had failed to mention the guy in charge, Dave Wiggin, that yes, I used to hang board and sling mud for a living. I was kind of keeping that a secret. My wife volunteered that information this evening at the rec committee meeting, so I'll probably be available on April 2nd, Dave. But if anyone else in the community is interested, contact us, contact Dave Wiegand. One way or another, we'll get you lined up. And that's all I've got. If there's no other comments, we'll close board member comment. I'd entertain one last motion this evening to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion and support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Meeting adjourned.